Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. I'm going to talk to you about the ECHR in relation to the Restore Britain political party and Rupert Lowe. He wants mass deportations and rightly wants to remove foreign criminals, and the reason that he, if he gets into power, might be stopped from doing that is something called the ECHR, which I believe he's actually toyed with the idea of actually leaving the ECHR. Now, that all sounds well and good, but as with everything in politics, it's never that simple, and it has real consequences for all of you people that are hardcore British nationalists and want the UK to stay together. The nations of England, Scotland, Wales, and the occupied territory of Northern Ireland, that would all be at risk if we were to leave the ECHR. Now, I've asked AI to do a summary of this, okay, so I'm just going to read this out, try and not make it too monotone or too long, but there's a lot to think about here, so let's get started. The proposal for the UK to leave the European Convention on Human Rights, ECHR, is a high-stakes move that would fundamentally alter the country's legal and international standing. Okay, so I've asked it to summarise. Leaving the ECHR would primarily be a move to gain full judicial sovereignty, specifically to prevent the European Court of Human Rights from blocking immigration policies such as the deportation of foreign criminals by repealing the Human Rights Act 1998 and replacing it with a domestic Bill of Rights. The UK government aims to ensure that British courts have the final say on all human rights matters, removing what some see as expansive and out-of-touch interpretations by the Strasbourg court. All sounds well and good. However, this would trigger a major constitutional crisis within the UK's devolved nations. Convention rights are embedded into the Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland Acts. Removing them would likely require the consent of the devolved parliaments, which they're not going to do. Furthermore, withdrawal would be a direct breach of the Belfast Good Friday Agreement, which mandates the ECHR as a safeguard in Northern Ireland, potentially destabilising the peace settlement and damaging relations with Ireland. Internationally, the UK would face significant security and economic isolation. The EU has explicitly stated that its law enforcement and judicial cooperation with the UK, including the extradition of suspects, is contingent on the continued adherence to the ECHR. If the UK leaves, the EU could terminate these security arrangements and potentially suspend parts of the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, the TCA, leading to increased costs for businesses and a breakdown in diplomatic cooperation. Finally, the UK would join Russia and Belarus as the only European nations outside the Council of Europe, severely undermining its global moral authority to criticise human rights abuses elsewhere. Domestically, while it might streamline some immigration processes, it would remove a vital safety net for all UK citizens who would no longer have an external court to appeal to if they felt their rights were violated by the British state. Okay, so a conclusion time now. Is it viable? Right, so legally the UK can withdraw from the ECHR as a sovereign state, but doing so is highly unviable in the current political and diplomatic climate of 2026 for several reasons. I know I've touched on these already. The Northern Ireland obstacle. There is no clear path to leave the ECHR without violating the Good Friday Agreement. This makes it a red line for both the EU and the US governments, risking severe diplomatic sanctions. Security risks. The loss of the European arrest warrant and real-time data sharing with EU police would leave the UK significantly more vulnerable to organised crime and terrorism, and the devolution gridlock pushing through such a change against the will of Scotland and Wales could accelerate the breakdown of the Union. That's one for you Britnats there. And what it would mean for the UK, For the UK, leaving the ECHR would represent a shift towards isolationism. While it might provide more flexibility and border control, the trade off would be a more fractured relationship with Europe, a more fragile internal union, and a significant reduction in the legal protections available to its own citizens. So basically, there's a lot to think about there, and for, like I say, for you British nationalist hardcore Britnats, you risk the breakup of the UK basically if we were ever to withdraw from that, and the Northern Ireland agreement would go up in smoke, and that would have like severe consequences for that region as well. So for that reason, I cannot see that ever happening. And so even if by some miracle Rupert Lowe's Restore Party gets in, like I say, the mass deportations, it's a pipe dream. Thanks for watching, folks. Let me know what you think in the comments. By the way, I just want to say, if you've made it to this point, right, I don't mind you disagreeing with me, right, but don't insult me. Be adult about it. We're all adults here. We can disagree with one another without resorting to insults. Sad keyboard warriors, do you know what I mean, that think they can insult people. Disagree with us, fine, but don't insult us, right? Thanks for watching.